That night, I saw my wife sitting on the bed, but she wasn't my wife. My breath got stuck in my chest. The door was locked from the inside. The windows were shut, and whatever was sitting in front of me was looking at me like it had known me for a very long time. Her smile wasn't the same one I had seen at the wedding. And the most terrifying part, she slowly said, "You're late, Oliver." But my name wasn't Oliver. My name is Adrian Blake. And all of this started on October 14th, 2022. When I moved into a new house in the UK with my wife, Eliza Blake, right after our wedding, our new address was 27 Hawthorne Lane, Whitby, North Yorkshire, UK. Whitby, a quiet, cold, and strangely silent place. I had lived in the UK before, but in London, in a small apartment. After the wedding, I thought we needed a new home, a fresh start, and I got this old Victorian house surprisingly cheap. That should have been my first warning, but I ignored it. October 14th, 2022, 6:40 p.m. We both stepped into the house for the first time. A cold breeze was flowing, and the sky was covered with clouds. The house looked beautiful from the outside, but inside it felt like no one had touched it for years. Elisa laughed and said, "A little creepy, but I like it." I laughed it off too. 9:15 p.m. we arranged some of our stuff, had a quick meal, and then that moment came, our first night. The room had dim lighting, the wind outside made the windows creak slightly. Elisa was sitting in front of me, there was happiness in her eyes, excitement. But then knock, knock, knock. Someone knocked on the door. We both froze. I said, "No one even knows we moved here." Elisa whispered, "Maybe a neighbor?" I walked toward the door, opened it. No one was there, just empty darkness and cold air. I came back into the room. But the moment I stepped inside, my eyes went to the bed. Elisa was still sitting there, but her head was slightly tilted and she was murmuring something to herself. I asked, "Elisa?" She suddenly stopped and slowly looked at me. Her eyes were strange, like she didn't recognize me. Then she smiled, but that smile wasn't hers. That night, nothing major happened. At least that's what I told myself, but that was just the beginning. October 15, 2022. 2:37 a.m. I suddenly woke up with a jolt. The room had turned colder. I looked. Elisa wasn't on the bed. The door was open, and I could hear a faint sound from downstairs, like something being dragged across the floor. I slowly walked downstairs, and what I saw, I can never forget. Elisa was standing in the kitchen, but she wasn't doing anything. She was just facing the wall and slowly banging her head against it. Thud, thud, thud. I got scared. "Elisa, what are you doing?" She stopped, slowly turned around. There was a slight bleed on her forehead, but there was no pain on her face, only a strange smile. She says, "This house isn't ours." I asked, "Who?" She suddenly went silent, then said, "She lives upstairs." We didn't sleep that night. October 18th, 2022, I started asking around in the neighborhood. An old woman looked at me and just said, "You shouldn't have taken that house." I insisted, so she told me. A couple used to live there before, Oliver and Mary Harrow. They had moved in after their wedding, and within a few weeks, Mary lost her mind. She kept saying someone else was in the house, and then one night she killed Oliver and disappeared. Her body was never found. The ground slipped beneath my feet because Elisa had mentioned that same name, Oliver. October 20th, 2022, 1:10 a.m. That night, everything changed. I was lying on the bed, but I couldn't sleep. Elisa was beside me. Suddenly, she turned toward me and said, "You won't leave me again, will you, Oliver?" A chill ran through my entire body. I said, "Elisa, I'm Adrian." She slowly sat up and said, "Don't lie." Her voice had changed. I got scared. I tried to open the door, but it was locked on its own. Then the room lights suddenly went off, and in the darkness I saw two shadows. One was Elisa, and one more. That second shadow slowly stood behind her and whispered something into her ear. Elisa looked at me, and her eyes had turned completely black. "You have to stay here." I used all my strength and broke the door open and ran outside. While running down the stairs, I felt like something was chasing me. I ran out, took a breath in the cold air, and turned back. In the window, Elisa was standing, but behind her, there was someone else, a woman, in a white dress, her face completely burned. October 21st, 2022, 30 a.m. I went straight to the police station. North Yorkshire Police came back with me. They searched the house, checked everything, but there was no one inside. Not Elisa, not anyone else. But when they checked the kitchen, they found something beneath the floor, old human bones. DNA tests later revealed they belonged to Oliver Harrow. But the biggest twist, Elisa was never found. She disappeared as if she never existed. The police told me maybe she ran away, but I know she didn't run. She's still in that house. Sometimes even now I get a call at night from an unknown number. I answer, and from the other side, there's just one voice. When are you coming back, Oliver? And the call disconnects. I left that house. I left Whitby, moved back to London, but some things never leave you. And I feel like one day she'll call me back, and this time, maybe I won't escape. The house was empty, but the voices never stopped. And the night they said, "I love you" for the first time, that same night, someone else whispered softly, "This is my house. Get out, or you both won't leave alive." Date, October 14th, 2022. Location, Maple Street, Spokane, Washington, USA. My name is Caleb Foster, and what I'm about to tell you, this isn't just a story. This really happened. My fiancée, Madison Reed, and we had just moved into a new house. Our wedding was only 2 months away, and we thought we'd start our new life in a new home. The address was 742 Maple Street. The first time we stepped inside, everything felt perfect. Wooden flooring, white walls, and a strange, cold air. Madison laughed and said, "Baby, this feels like our dream home." I smiled too, but honestly, the moment I walked in, I felt like someone was watching us. I ignored it. The first night, we were in the bedroom. Madison came closer to me and softly said, "Finally, just us, alone." That night felt normal, romance, laughter, plans for the future. But the moment we turned off the lights, thack, something fell in the kitchen. I got up immediately, probably something from a shelf. When I reached the kitchen, everything was fine. Nothing had moved. Then, right behind me, a faint whisper, "Get out." I turned instantly. No one was there. The next day, Madison told me, "Last night I felt like someone was standing near me when you left the room." I asked, tense, "What do you mean?" She went quiet, like a woman, leaning close to my ear. "This is my house." A chill ran down my spine. Over the next few nights, things got worse. At exactly 3 a.m. every night, the bedroom door would open on its own, footsteps in the hallway, and sometimes in the mirror a shadow. A woman, her face never visible, only long, black eyes. One night, Madison and I were sitting on the couch in a romantic mood. She rested her head on my shoulder and said, "We'll stay here even after the wedding, right?" I smiled. "Of course." Suddenly, the TV turned on by itself. Only one line blinked on the screen, "Get out." And then, in the TV's reflection, we saw a woman standing behind us. Her feet twisted backward, her neck broken, black blood dripping from her eyes. Madison screamed. We both turned instantly. No one was there. After that night, Madison started changing. She would sit alone, talking to someone. One day, I listened quietly. She was whispering, "Please let us stay, we'll leave." Then, suddenly, her voice changed, deep and dangerous. "No, now you're not leaving." My blood ran cold. Twist. I decided to research the house. Local records showed back in 2009 a woman lived here, Veronica Hayes. She lived here with her fiancé. 2 days before their wedding, she burned him alive. And when the police arrived, she killed herself too. But before dying, she said one thing: "This house is mine and no one will love here." That night, everything was about to end. I walked into the bedroom. Madison was sitting on the bed, but that wasn't Madison. Her face began to burn slowly. her skin melting, her eyes completely black. She smiled and said, "You'll burn, just like him." I screamed, "Madison!" Suddenly, she started crawling toward me, upside down, like an animal, black liquid dripping from her mouth. I stepped back in terror, and then the door slammed shut, lights started flickering. She stopped right in front of me, then leaned close to my ear and whispered, "Tonight, you both die here." In that moment, I did the only thing I could. I grabbed Madison hard and shook her. "Wake up!" For a second, everything froze. Then Madison screamed and snapped out of it. The door opened. Lights went normal. Everything became calm, as if nothing had happened. But we understood this house would not let us live. Without thinking, at 3:27 a.m., we left the house. No belongings, no looking back. We just ran. But the story doesn't end there. 2 days later, we got a call. New tenants who had moved into the house. They had called the police because all night they heard one voice, "This is my house. Get out, or I'll burn you too." Even today, that house on Maple Street is empty. No one can stay there, and whoever tries either loses their mind or disappears. Now you tell me, if you found a perfect dream house at a cheap price and everything seemed perfect, would you move in without thinking, or would you first find out who lived there before you? The door was slowly opening on its own, and from inside there was a sound, like someone dragging their feet across the floor. I stood frozen, holding my breath because I could clearly hear it. That sound was coming from inside my house, the house I had just moved into. My name is Evan Brooks, and this happened on October 17th, 2022. The address was 4821 Redwood Hollow Lane, San Jose, California. I had moved from Los Angeles to San Jose. New job, new life. Everything felt like a fresh start. I had finalized the house just by looking at online photos. It was a bit old but cheap, and the location was perfect. The first time I stood in front of that house, I don't know why, but I felt uneasy, like someone was watching me, but I ignored it. New place, it's normal to feel a little weird, I told myself. The moment I stepped inside, a cold gust of air hit me. Even though the weather outside was normal, I thought maybe the windows were open, but all the windows were closed. That day, October 17th, 2022, around 6:40 p.m., I placed my belongings inside and started settling in alone. The first night was normal, just one thing felt strange. At around 2:13 a.m., I felt like someone was walking in the room upstairs. Thack, thack, thack. I thought, maybe the wood is settling, but then the sound stopped, and after a few seconds, it started again. This time, the footsteps slowly started coming toward my room. My heart started pounding. I slowly opened my bedroom door and looked into the hallway. No one was there, but on the floor there were faint, wet footprints, as if someone had just walked through with wet feet. And those footprints stopped right outside my room. I couldn't sleep at all that night. The next day I talked to my neighbor. Her name was Clara Jennings. I casually asked, "Does this house have any history?" She went completely silent, then slowly said, "Who sold you this house?" I told her the agent's name. Clara took a deep breath. "You shouldn't stay here." A slight fear crept into me. "Why?" She said, "A family used to live here in 2019 in October." My hands turned cold. One night, the police got a call. Neighbors reported strange noises. When the police went inside, the whole house was empty, but there were drag marks of blood on the floor, like someone had been dragged. My breath got stuck. "What happened to the family?" I asked. Clara looked straight into my eyes and said, "No one knows to this day." After that day, things started getting worse. October 23rd, 2022, 1:47 a.m., I was working on my laptop. Suddenly, the screen started flickering, and from the speakers, a strange sound started coming, like someone crying very softly. I immediately shut the laptop, but the sound didn't stop. That sound was now echoing throughout the room. "Please, don't leave me." A chill ran through my entire body. I turned around, and in that moment, my life changed. Behind me, a woman was standing. Her hair was wet, her face half covered, and her feet weren't even touching the ground. I screamed and started running. But the moment I opened the door, the hallway, which led straight outside, now felt endless. I kept running, but there was no exit. Then suddenly, that same voice behind me. You will leave too, like they did. I gathered the courage to turn back. She wasn't alone anymore. Behind her, 3 more shadows were standing, a man and 2 small children, their eyes completely black, and blood was dripping from their mouths. I dropped to my knees. Please, let me go. The woman slowly came closer and whispered near my ear, you have to stay with us. Suddenly, everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was in the basement. The date was October 24th, 2022, 5:32 a.m. My hands were tied, and in front of me, that same family was standing. But this time, their bodies were completely decayed, like they had been dead for years. That's when I realized they weren't gone. They were trapped, and now they wanted to trap me with them. Somehow, I freed my hands and ran. There was an old door in the basement, half broken. I used all my strength to break it and ran outside. And the moment I got out of the house, I collapsed and probably passed out. When I woke up, the police were standing in front of me. The date, October 24th, 2022, 8:10 a.m., an officer asked, what happened here? Shaking, I said, there's something inside that house. The police went in, searched the entire house, but they found nothing. No ghost, no footprints, no sign in the basement. Everything was completely normal, as if nothing had ever happened. But, as they were leaving, one officer suddenly stopped. He looked toward the basement and slowly said, sir, there's a smell coming from here. The police broke the floor, and what they found shocked me to my core. Underneath, that same family was buried in a decayed state, exactly how I had seen them. The officer looked at me. When did you move in? I slowly said, October 17. He went into shock. That's strange, because according to forensics, these bodies were freshly buried in October 2022. The ground slipped beneath my feet. That means the night I saw them, they weren't ghosts already. They were being killed at that exact time. And what I saw wasn't the past, it was happening again inside that house. And even now, sometimes at night, I still hear that same voice. Please don't leave me. And I know they're still there, waiting for someone new. I saw my own wife dying right in front of my eyes, and I couldn't do anything. I was just standing there, only a few steps away from her, but my body felt like it was completely paralyzed. Alara was being dragged across the floor, her nails scraping against the wooden surface, and she was screaming, Theo, please, save me. But no sound was coming out of my mouth, and the one dragging her, I could see her clearly, a white sari, half of her face burned, and that smile, like she had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. Then suddenly she stopped, slowly turned her head toward me, and for the first time, she looked at me, her eyes completely empty, and she smiled. You're too late, Theo. My name is Theo Ashcroft, and all of this started on the 15th of October, 2022, when my wife Alara Whitcomb and I moved into that old Victorian house at 24 Maplewood Lane in York. The first day was completely normal, so normal that now it feels terrifying to even remember it. We arrived in the morning. Cold air was blowing, everything around was completely silent. Alara loved the house the moment she saw it. She kept saying it was perfect, like it was made just for us. I opened the door, and as soon as we stepped inside, a cold gust of air hit us. But I ignored it. We spent the whole day setting everything up. Boxes, furniture, kitchen, everything. By evening, the house started to feel like home. That night, we had dinner together. We laughed, talked. Everything felt completely normal. Around 12:40 at night, we were about to go to sleep when suddenly there was a soft knock on the door. Knock, knock, knock. We both went completely silent. Alara whispered, Theo, someone knocked. I tried to stay calm. I'll check. I walked to the door, grabbed the handle, slowly opened it. There was no one outside, but on the floor, there were wet footprints coming from outside, leading inside. Something inside me shifted in that moment, but I didn't tell Alara anything. I just said it was nothing and closed the door. But that night, I couldn't sleep. The next day, I went to the office. Alara stayed home alone. When I came back in the evening, her face had changed. She looked scared, like she had seen something she shouldn't have. She asked me if I had sent someone to the house. I said no. Then she told me that someone had been calling her name from different corners of the house, sometimes from behind, sometimes from above. I tried to convince her it was just in her head, but deep down, even I felt uneasy. That night we went to bed, and this time I could clearly feel it too. We were not alone, like someone was standing outside our room, watching us. On the third day, I had to go to Manchester. Alara tried to stop me. She was clearly scared, but I didn't listen. I left, and that was my biggest mistake. That night around 9:30, she called me. Her voice was shaking. She said, "Theo, I saw her." I asked who. She said, "In the mirror, she was standing behind me." And then the call cut. I kept calling back, but she didn't answer. The next morning, I rushed back. The door was locked from inside. I kept knocking. Then I heard a faint sound from inside, like something being dragged. I forced the door open, went inside, and Alara was lying unconscious on the floor. The room was a mess. There was a burned handprint on the wall. I picked her up, splashed water on her face. After a few moments, she woke up, and what she told me shook me completely. She said that at night she saw a burned woman in the mirror. Then she suddenly disappeared. She thought it was her imagination. She went to sleep, but at 3 a.m. she woke up, drank water, and when she came back to bed, she saw that same woman lying beside her. She froze in fear, turned on the lights. No one was there. Then a sound came from under the bed. She looked underneath, nothing. But when she turned back, that woman was sitting on the bed, staring at her. And then she fainted. After that day, everything changed. That woman didn't just appear to Alara anymore. I started seeing her too. Footsteps at night, burn marks on the walls, and sometimes someone calling my name, Theo. Slowly, I started asking the neighbors. That's when I found out that a girl used to live in that house, and she burned herself to death. Her name was Isolde Mercer. When I saw her old photograph, my hands started shaking because I knew her. She was part of my past. She loved me a long time ago, but I rejected her because I loved Alara. The pain I saw in her eyes that day, I never forgot, and now she was back. Slowly, I realized she wanted to kill Alara because she wanted to take her away from me. That night, when she was dragging Alara, that was the moment I told you at the beginning. But in that moment, something changed. The locket around Alara's neck suddenly became hot. Isolde stepped back, like she was in pain, and that's when I realized she wasn't completely evil. The next day, I tried to talk to her alone. At night, I stood in the room and said, "Isolde, I know you're here." The temperature in the room suddenly dropped, and she appeared in front of me. This time she wasn't angry. There were tears in her eyes. She said, "I truly loved you." Her voice was breaking. I slowly said, "I know." She looked at Alara and said, "I tried to kill her because she is with you." I stayed silent. Then I said, "But I love her." Hearing this, she stayed quiet for a few seconds. Then she slowly said, "That night, I burned myself because I couldn't bear to see you with someone else." Tears were falling from her eyes. My parents think it was an accident. They never found out the truth. Silence filled the room. I said to her, "You need peace, not revenge." She kept looking at me like she was understanding it for the first time. But I was wrong. She had decided that she would kill Alara and take me with her, as if I had become her obsession, something she couldn't have while she was alive. She wanted to claim after death. After that night, the atmosphere of the house completely changed. At first, there were only sounds. Now things started moving on their own. At night, doors would shut by themselves. Sometimes the plates in the kitchen would fall. And the most terrifying part, she didn't just appear anymore. She started touching us. One night, around 2:50 a.m., both Ilara and I woke up because we could hear someone walking in the room, slowly, footsteps circling around our bed. Ilara grabbed my hand tightly. "Theo, she's here." I didn't say anything, but I knew she was right. Suddenly, the bed sank slightly, as if someone had sat beside us. Ilara started crying. "Please, leave us alone," and then her voice came right next to my ear. "I won't leave her." I turned around. She was standing right behind me, so close that I could smell her burned skin. I wanted to step back, but again, my body froze. The next day, Ilara's condition got worse. There were scratches on her arms, as if someone had grabbed her with nails. She said, "Theo, she sat beside me the whole night, just watching me." Now I understood this wasn't going to stop. I decided to leave the house. We packed our bags, walked to the door, but the moment I opened it, outside, it wasn't the same hallway. It was dark, as if nothing existed outside the house. I turned back. The house looked normal, but outside there was nothing. Ilara screamed in fear, "Theo, we can't get out." And then a voice came from behind. "This house is not yours anymore." That day, we understood. We were trapped. That night, I tried to talk to her again. Isolde, please, let us go. The room turned cold and she appeared in front of me. This time her face was even more burned. As if every time she appeared, she was getting worse. "You can't leave, Theo. You are mine." There was no love left in her voice, only obsession and madness. Ilara was standing behind me, trembling. Isolde looked at her and smiled. "Tonight, this will end." That night, everything began. 3:07 a.m., the exact same time when everything had happened before. Suddenly, Ilara was lifted into the air from the bed, as if something had grabbed her. She was struggling in the air. "Theo, please." I ran to hold her, but the moment I touched her, I was thrown back by a strong force and fell to the floor. Isolde was standing behind her, and this time she was fully visible. Her body half burned, her eyes empty, but this time there was anger on her face. "You left me. Now I won't leave her." Suddenly, Ilara's locket began to glow brightly, the room filled with light. Isolde screamed as if she was being burned, and in that moment something flashed in my mind. That night, when Isolde came to see me, she was crying. I rejected her, but I left her alone. In that condition, she came to that house and burned herself. But one thing I understood now that I hadn't understood before. Before she died, she had taken my name. Her soul had become bound to me. That's why she wanted to take me with her. I shouted with all my strength, "Isolde, stop!" She froze. I said, "If you truly love me, then let me go." A few seconds, silence. For the first time, the anger in her eyes turned into pain. I was left alone. "Theo," I slowly said, "but even now, you are not alone. You can still find peace." Ilara's locket glowed even brighter, the room filled with light. Isolde started stepping back. Her body began to break apart like it was turning into smoke. She looked at me one last time. "Will you ever remember me?" Tears filled my eyes. "Yes." She smiled faintly, and then, slowly, she disappeared. Ilara fell to the ground. I caught her. After that night, everything ended. The house became normal. The doors opened again. We were able to leave. A few days later, we left that house. But even today, sometimes when I'm alone and I look into the mirror, it feels like someone is standing behind me. But this time, it's not fear, just a feeling that some kinds of love don't end, even after death. That night, October 14th, 2022, the time was 2:37 a.m. I saw it with my own eyes. Someone was standing inside the upstairs window, even though I had the key to that room and I was standing downstairs in the hall. The thing behind the window slowly tilted its head, like it was watching me, like it was smiling, and then it wrote something on the glass from the inside with its fingers. "You should not have come here." My phone slipped from my hand at that moment, and I understood. This new house, isn't just a house, it's something else, something much more terrifying. My name is Mason Hale, and this all happened to me in California. The address was 69112 Cypress Ridge Drive, Pasadena, California. We moved into this house on October 10, 2022. Me, my wife, Sienna Hale, and our 8-year-old daughter, Aria. Sienna was very happy because this house was exactly what she wanted. Big, quiet, and not many people around. But from the beginning, something about this house felt off to me. The very first night, October 10th, 2022, the time was 11:48 p.m. We were setting up our things when we heard footsteps from upstairs. Thack, thack, thack. I thought maybe it was just the wood settling, but Sienna heard it too. She asked, "Mason, is someone upstairs?" I laughed it off. No, probably just the house settling. But inside, I was already uneasy. October 11th, 2022, at 3:15 p.m., Aria came to me. "Dad, there's a lady in the upstairs room." I asked, "Who?" She said, "The one who lives inside the wall." A chill ran through my entire body. I went upstairs to check. Everything was empty, but the last room felt different. Cold, unnaturally cold. October 12th, 2022, 1:12 a.m., I heard whispering, "Mason, come upstairs." I went up. There was an old doll lying in the room, not ours, broken eyes, black stains. I got scared and ran downstairs. The next day, the doll was gone. Aria said, "Dad, you threw her doll. She's upset." October 13, a neighbor told me no one stays in that house for long. October 14, 2:37 a.m., I saw her in the window and everything changed after that. Sienna started changing. Blank stares. One night, she was banging her head against the wall. Thack, thack, thack. Her eyes were completely black. This house is not ours anymore. October 15, we were packing. Aria disappeared. I heard laughter from upstairs. I broke the door open, and inside, Aria was floating in the air, and behind her, a burned woman, black smoke coming out. "Your daughter belongs to me now." I pulled Aria. The woman screamed. We ran, got into the car, and left without looking back. In the rearview mirror, I saw her standing outside the house, waving slowly. October 16, the cops came. They found nothing except one thing written on the wall. They tried to leave too. Case closed, but the story didn't end. Last night, Aria said again, "Dad, the auntie says we can't leave her." Now I don't know, did we escape or did she come with us? The door was slowly closing on its own, and from inside, there was a scratching sound, like someone was trying to claw their way out through the walls. My name is Jameson Brooks, and what I'm about to tell you is the most terrifying experience of my life. Even today, when I'm alone at night, that house, those sounds, they all come back. It all started on October 17th, 2023, when my wife Emily Brooks and I bought a new house. The address was 4827 Maplewood Drive, Ashford, Ohio, USA. We were both really excited because it was our first home. It was cheap, and honestly, it looked like the perfect American house straight out of a movie. Big, painted white, with a dried up lawn in the front and a dense forest behind it. But there was something strange. While we were buying the house, the realtor kept trying to rush the deal, like he didn't want us asking too many questions. But we were happy, and we didn't notice anything at the time. We moved in on October 19th, 2023. The first 2 days were normal, although the inside of the house felt unusually cold, but we assumed it was just the Ohio weather. Then came the third night, October 22. At exactly 2:37 a.m., I suddenly woke up. It felt like someone had whispered right next to my ear, "Don't stay here." I jolted up. The whole room was drowned in darkness. Only a faint streetlight glow was coming through the window. I looked at Emily. She was in a deep sleep. I thought it was just a dream. But then, knock, knock, knock. A sound came from the basement. Our house had an old basement, one we hadn't even properly explored yet. At first I ignored it, but the knocking kept coming back, like someone was hitting the door from down there. I slowly got up and walked toward the stairs. As I went down, the air kept getting colder, and there was a strange smell, like rotting flesh. My hands were shaking, but curiosity kept pulling me down. When I opened the basement door, it was pitch black inside. I tried turning on the light, but the switch wasn't working. Then a voice came from inside. "Help me." A chill ran down my entire body. It was a woman's voice, very faint, full of pain. I pulled out my flashlight and pointed it inside. And what I saw, I will never forget. There were nail marks all over the walls, like someone had tried to claw their way out, and in the corner of the basement, there was an old wooden door, half broken. Behind it, something that looked like dried blood had spread out. I stepped back, and then, bang! That door slammed shut on its own. I ran upstairs in pure fear. The next morning, I told Emily everything. At first, she laughed, but when I showed her the basement, the color drained from her face. We decided we wouldn't open that door again, but things didn't end there. The next day, October 23, Emily's behavior started to change. She kept staring at empty walls like she was talking to someone. When I asked her, she said, "Can't you see her? That woman, she's asking for help." The ground beneath me felt like it disappeared. I grabbed her and said, "There's no one here." But she smiled, a strange, terrifying smile. "You'll see her soon." That night, things got even worse. At 3:15 a.m., I noticed Emily wasn't in bed. I searched the whole house, and then I saw light coming from the basement. I slowly walked downstairs, and what I saw was the most horrifying thing of my life. Emily was standing in front of that old door. Her hand was covered in blood, and she was writing something on the wall. "Let her out!" I shouted. "Emily!" She slowly turned toward me. Her eyes were completely black, and her voice, it wasn't hers. "You locked her in here. Now she will come out." I couldn't understand what was happening. Suddenly, that door creaked open on its own, and from inside, something came out. A woman, but not human. Her body was decayed, her fingers long and twisted, and her eyes completely white. She slowly started walking toward us. I grabbed Emily and tried to run, but the basement door slammed shut on its own. We were trapped. That thing was now right in front of us. It leaned toward Emily and whispered something in her ear, and suddenly Emily started screaming, like something inside her was breaking apart. I used all my strength to force the door open, and somehow I managed to break it open. I dragged Emily out. We got into the car and drove away as fast as we could. When I looked back, in the window of the house, that woman was standing there, smiling. We drove straight to the police station. On October 24th, 2023, the cops came back to the house with us. They investigated everything, opened the basement, but there was nothing there. No door, no blood, no marks. Everything was normal, like nothing had ever happened. But they found one thing, a faint scratch on the wall. It said, "She is still here." The cops closed the case. They said it was probably stress or hallucination. But I know it was real, because even now, when I try to sleep at night, I still hear that same voice, "Don't stay here." And sometimes in the mirror behind Emily, that woman is standing there, smiling. At 2:17 a.m. that night, when the entire house was silent, suddenly a dragging sound came from the upstairs room, as if something heavy was being pulled across the floor, and then suddenly thump, thump, thump. It felt like someone was coming down the stairs, but at that moment there was no one in that house except the four of us downstairs. I swear, if I had stayed there for 5 more seconds that night, maybe I wouldn't be alive today to tell this story. My name is Ethan Cole, and all of this happened to me in the USA. Date, November 3rd, 2023. Address, 918 Hollow Ridge Drive, Cedar Falls, Iowa, USA. I lived with my wife, Megan Cole, and our 2 kids, Lucas, 9 years old, and Ivy, 6 years old. We had moved from Chicago to Cedar Falls for a fresh start. We got this house surprisingly cheap, So cheap that even Megan asked, is something wrong with this place? But the realtor just smiled and said, owner had to relocate urgently. At that time, it sounded normal. Around 5:40 p.m., we entered the house. From the outside, it looked perfect. White wooden walls, a porch, a backyard, a complete dream home. But the moment I opened the main door, a strange cold air rushed from inside, as if the house was breathing. I ignored it. The first night was normal, except Ivy said, "Dad, there's a tall man standing in my room." We thought it was just imagination, but the second night, everything changed. Date, November 4th, 2023. Time, 1:38 a.m. I heard footsteps in the hallway. Tap, tap, tap. I thought it was Megan, but she was right beside me. I slowly stepped out. Lucas's room light was on. The door was slightly open. I went inside. Lucas was asleep, but on the wall, there were scratch marks, as if someone had carved the wall with their nails, and those marks, right in front of me, were slowly getting deeper. I froze, and then, right next to my ear, a voice whispered, "Leave, before he wakes." I turned around instantly. No one was there. That night, I couldn't sleep. The next day, I talked to a neighbor across the street. A middle-aged woman looked at me strangely and said, "You moved into that house? They didn't warn you?" I asked, "About what?" She stayed silent for a moment, then said, "People don't stay there, not for long." Now I was starting to feel uneasy, but we decided we're not leaving this easily, and that was our biggest mistake. The third night, everything was about to end. Date, November 5th, 2023. Time, 2:17 a.m., the same time. I had gone to the kitchen to get some water. That's when I heard the dragging sound from upstairs, grrr, as if a dead body was being pulled across the floor. I slowly walked toward the stairs, and then, thump, something fell. I looked up, and at the top of the stairs, a man was standing. But he wasn't human. His body was twisted, bones sticking out, his face half burned, half rotten, and his eyes completely black. He was staring at me, and then he started coming down the stairs. Thump, thump, thump. My body froze, and then Lucas screamed, "Dad, help me!" I ran to his room, and what I saw still haunts me. Lucas was lifted in the air as if some invisible force was holding him. Deep nail marks were forming on his neck. Megan was crying, hysterical. Ivy was trembling in the corner, and then the door slammed shut on its own. Bang! The room went dark, and in that darkness, that man was standing, closer than before. In a slow voice, he said, "You took what was mine." I shouted, "We didn't know. We'll leave." He smiled, a broken, blood-filled smile. Then he looked at Ivy and started moving toward her. That was the moment I made my decision. I grabbed the lamp nearby and smashed it into the window with all my strength. The glass shattered. My hands were cut. Blood started dripping, but I didn't care. I picked up Ivy and pushed her outside. Then Lucas, then Megan, and finally I jumped out myself. The moment we hit the ground outside, a scream came from inside the house, a scream so loud as if hundreds of people were screaming together. We ran to the street, and when I looked back, in every window of the house, that man was standing, but he wasn't alone anymore. Behind him, there were more faces, burned, rotten, broken, all staring at us. We immediately called 911. Date, November 5th, 2023. Time, 3:02 a.m. The police arrived. They searched the entire house, but there was nothing. No marks, no broken window, no blood. Everything was normal, as if nothing had ever happened. But when they opened the basement, one officer shouted on the wall, written in blood, "You can't leave." The investigation later revealed, back in 1996, the owner of that house had killed his entire family in the basement and then burned himself alive. And since then, anyone who moved in either disappeared or lost their mind. We somehow survived, but the story doesn't end here, because last night, date December 12th, 2023, time 2:17 a.m., Lucas woke up again and quietly said, "Dad, he's outside again." I slowly looked toward the window, and this time, it wasn't that house anymore, and still, that man was standing there, smiling as if saying, "Now you can't escape." I still haven't forgotten that sound from that night. The scratching of someone's nails from behind the door, tap, 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 like someone was slowly trying to get inside. And then suddenly, Daniel, please, open the door. That voice, it was Rowan's. But Rowan was right in front of me, lying on the floor, covered in blood, his neck brutally slashed, and yet he was standing outside calling me. That night, I understood something for the first time. Not every voice belongs to a human, and not every face is alive. My name is Daniel Whitmore, and this is the story of July 18th, 2023, when I and my two friends, Rowan Hale and Marcus Ellery, traveled from the UK to the Philippines. The three of us had been friends since college. We loved traveling, chasing adventure, and honestly, we had a habit of not taking danger seriously. We thought this trip would just be fun, but we had no idea this trip would change us forever. We arrived in the Philippines on July 16, 2023. The first day was perfect. Beaches, street food, random vlog recordings, everything felt like a dream. But the problem started that very night, when we realized the entire area was packed because of a local festival. Every hotel, every lodge was full. We tried almost 8 different places, but everywhere we got the same answer. Sorry, sir, no vacancy. It was already 11 p.m. We were tired, irritated, and a little anxious. Marcus said in frustration, "This is insane. Where are we supposed to go now?" Rowan tried to joke, "Bro, chill. Worst case, we sleep on the street." I looked at him. Very funny, but the truth was we had no idea what to do. That's when a man slowly walked toward us, around 60 years old, a dry face, sunken skin, and his eyes, they had a strange shine, like he wasn't looking at us, but reading us. He asked in broken English, "You boys need house?" We went silent. I replied cautiously, "For a few days." "Yeah," he gave a faint smile, but that smile wasn't comforting. "I give you place, cheap, quiet place." Marcus whispered, "This feels off." I agreed, but the situation was such that we had no choice. We said yes. His name was Mr. Ernesto Villanueva. He made us sit in his old Jeep and drove us away from the city, far away where even the streetlights slowly disappeared and only darkness remained around us. He told us the address, House 9, Del Rosario Lane, Barangay Malaya, Philippines. The house came into view, and honestly, something felt wrong at first glance. It was big, but broken, black stains on the walls, half-broken windows, and the strangest thing, the entire house felt like it was breathing, silent, but alive. Ernesto opened the door, complete darkness inside. He turned on an old bulb, a dim yellow light that made the shadows even deeper. He looked at us and said, "You stay downstairs? Upstairs, no go." Rowan immediately asked, "Why not?" Ernesto stayed silent for a few seconds, then said, "Old place, not good." His voice was flat, but his eyes were giving a warning. Marcus muttered, "Yeah, definitely haunted." We laughed it off because we didn't want to take it seriously. The first night was somehow normal. We kept our bags, ate a little, and went to sleep. But the second day, everything changed. July 17, 2023. Morning was fine. We went out, explored, took photos, but in the evening, when we came back, the main door was half open. I stopped. "Did we lock it?" Marcus said, "Yeah, I remember locking it." Rowan joked, "Maybe your ghost opened it." We walked inside, and instantly a rotten smell surrounded us, like something old, decaying. I covered my face. "What the hell is that smell?" And then from upstairs, a sound came, tap, like something heavy had dropped. All three of us froze. Marcus whispered, "You heard that, right?" This time, no one laughed because we all heard it. I looked at the staircase. A large lock was still there, exactly the way Ernesto left it. But the sound came again, tap, tap, like someone was walking upstairs. Rowan slowly said, "Bro, that's not normal." That night, we decided we would ignore it. But at 3:12 a.m., I suddenly woke up because someone was walking outside my room, slowly dragging their feet. Shh. I gathered the courage and opened the door. The corridor was empty, but on the floor, there were wet footprints, as if someone had just stepped out of water, and those footprints were going straight toward the staircase where the lock was placed. And as soon as the footprints reached the stairs, they disappeared. The next morning, we talked to Ernesto. I asked, "Is there someone upstairs?" He stared at me for a few seconds, then said, "No one." Marcus added, "Then who was walking?" This time, Ernesto's face changed, his eyes filled with anger. "I told you, don't ask." There was something different in his voice, like he was losing control. After that day, the atmosphere in the house became heavier, sounds at night, scratching in the walls, and sometimes a faint, whispering laughter. But the most terrifying thing happened on the night of July 18th, 2023, when Rowan suddenly disappeared. We searched the entire house, every room, every corner, but he was nowhere. And then Marcus shouted for me. I ran to him, and I saw the lock on the staircase lying broken on the floor, and upstairs in the darkness, someone was standing. I didn't move, I couldn't, because whatever was standing upstairs wasn't just watching us, it felt like it was waiting. Marcus grabbed my arm tightly. "Daniel, tell me you see that." My throat had gone dry. "Yeah, I see it." The figure didn't move, just stood there, completely still, like it wasn't breathing, like it didn't need to. And then slowly it tilted its head the wrong way, too far, like a neck that shouldn't bend like that. Marcus whispered, "That's not Rowan." But before we could react, the figure suddenly stepped back and disappeared into the darkness upstairs. We both stood frozen for a few seconds, and then Marcus said, "We have to go up." I immediately snapped, "Are you insane? We need to get out of here." But Marcus shook his head. "What if Rowan is still alive?" That one line hit me hard, because deep down I knew if there was even a 1% chance, we couldn't just leave him. So against every instinct screaming inside me, we decided to go upstairs. I picked up a broken wooden rod from the corner. Marcus turned on his phone flashlight, and slowly, step by step, we climbed the stairs. Each step creaked, loud enough to make my heart race. By the time we reached the top, the air felt different, heavier, colder, like we had stepped into another place entirely. There was a long corridor, dark, narrow, and at the end of it, a single door, slightly open. From inside, a faint dragging sound was coming. Grrr. Grrr. Marcus looked at me. "That's coming from there." We walked slowly toward the door. Every step felt wrong, like something was telling us to turn back, but we didn't. When we reached the door, I pushed it open, very slowly, and what I saw inside made my entirety go numb. It was a room filled with old furniture, broken chairs, dusty shelves, and on the floor there were deep scratch marks, like someone had been dragged across it. And then, in the corner, I saw him, Rowan, sitting on the floor, his back facing us, completely still. Marcus rushed forward. "Rowan!" I shouted. "Wait!" But it was too late. Marcus had already reached him. He placed his hand on Rowan's shoulder. "Bro, what happened to you?" And in the next second, Rowan's head snapped back at an impossible angle facing Marcus. His face wasn't his anymore. Eyes wide open, pitch black, mouth stretched into a horrifying smile, and then he spoke in a voice that wasn't his. "You came back." Marcus stumbled back in shock. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Rowan slowly stood up, but his movements were unnatural, jerky, like a puppet being pulled by invisible strings. I stepped back. "Marcus, that's not Rowan." And then, suddenly, Rowan lunged at Marcus, faster than anything I had ever seen. He grabbed him by the throat and slammed him against the wall. Marcus screamed, trying to break free. I rushed forward and hit Rowan with the wooden rod, once, twice, but it didn't affect him, not at all. He turned his head toward me, slowly, smiling, and then he whispered, "He was the easiest." Before I could understand what that meant, he snapped Marcus's neck, right in front of me. A sharp crack echoed in the room. Marcus's body went limp and dropped to the floor. I froze, my mind blank, my body refusing to move. And then Rowan, or whatever that thing was, started walking toward me, step by step. I turned and ran. I didn't think, I didn't look back. I just ran down the stairs, out of the house, into the dark road. I kept running until my lungs felt like they would burst. After what felt like forever, I reached the main road and somehow flagged down a passing vehicle. I don't even remember how I explained anything. Everything was a blur. The next thing I remember was sitting inside a small police station on July 19th, 2023, trying to explain everything. The officers didn't believe me at first, but when they saw my condition, covered in dirt, shaking, barely able to speak, they decided to check. We went back to the house with 2 officers. When we reached there, the door was open, just like before. We stepped inside. Everything looked normal, too normal. No smell, no scratches, no signs of anything. We went upstairs. The room was empty. No Rowan, no Marcus, no blood, nothing. One of the officers looked at me. There's nothing here. I couldn't believe it. I kept saying, they were here. I saw it. But no one listened. As we were leaving, one of the officers called out, "Hey, what's this?" We turned back. He was standing near the staircase, holding something in his hand. It was a small, rusted key, and attached to it was a tag. On the tag, there were 3 names scratched into it: Daniel Whitmore, Marcus Ellery, and Rowan Hale. My heart stopped, because those names, they weren't written normally. They were carved deep, like someone had engraved them, long before we ever came there. The officer frowned. "Do you know anything about this?" I slowly shook my head, unable to speak, and then, from upstairs, we heard it again. Tap, tap, tap. All of us froze. The officers looked at each other. One of them whispered, "Did you hear that?" This time, I didn't say anything, because I knew whatever was in that house was still there, and it wasn't done yet. Even today, I still hear that sound sometimes, late at night, outside my door. Tap, tap, tap. And every time I remember that voice, soft, broken, calling my name, "Daniel, please open the door." That night at 3:17 a.m., when I first heard the sound of someone scratching their nails from inside the wall of that house, I should have understood right then that we had made a terrible mistake. "Ryan, are you hearing this?" Emily's trembling voice reached my ears. I looked at the clock. 3:17 a.m., exactly the same time. The same time that was written on that old piece of paper we found on the day we moved in. But by then, it was already too late. My name is Ryan Fletcher, and what I'm about to tell you, this isn't a story. This all really happened to me. I survived, but how, I still don't fully understand. It all started on October 12th, 2023. When my wife Emily and I bought a new house. The address was 4821 Willow Creek Drive, Ashford, Oregon, USA. The house was incredibly cheap, so cheap that even I found it suspicious. But the agent said the owner wanted to sell urgently, and I, like an idiot, believed it. The first time we arrived in front of that house, everything looked normal. A big 2-story home, dry trees all around it. But the strange thing was, all the nearby houses were occupied. Only our house felt different, quiet, too quiet. Emily laughed and said, "Perfect horror movie house." I wish that joke had never turned real. We moved into that house on October 15th, 2023. The first day went completely fine. We arranged our stuff, had dinner, and went to sleep. But at 2:43 a.m., I suddenly woke up. I felt like someone had softly called my name, "Ryan!" I looked at Emily. She was fast asleep. I thought maybe it was just a dream. But then, from the upper floor, I heard slow footsteps. Tap, tap, tap. Like someone walking barefoot. I got up and walked toward the stairs. Upstairs was completely dark. "Hello?" I called out. No response. As I turned back, suddenly, from upstairs, I heard fast-running footsteps. Thud, 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 and then silence. I couldn't sleep that night. The next day, I told Emily everything, but she laughed and said, "New house, new sounds, relax." I agreed, but the real horror had just begun. October 17th, 2023, we decided to clean the basement. It was old and covered in dust. As soon as I opened an old wooden box, inside it were some files and an old diary. On the first page it was written, "If you hear them, do not look inside the walls." My hands started shaking. Emily joked, "Wow, previous owner was dramatic." But I felt something was wrong. That night, 3:17 a.m., the same sound came again, this time clearly from inside the wall. Scratch, 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 like someone trying to get out. Emily woke up too. Ryan, what is that? I went near the wall and placed my ear against it, and then, from inside, slowly someone whispered, "Let me out." My breath stopped. Emily screamed. We both stepped back. The next day, I had the entire wall checked, but nothing was found inside. No pipes, no animals, nothing. But the sound started coming every night at 3:17. October 20th, 2023, I started reading the diary. It said that the original owner of the house, a man named Ethan Cole, he had buried his wife and daughter alive inside the walls of the house because he believed they were not real. He had built secret compartments inside the walls. And the most terrifying line, they are still inside, waiting. The diary slipped from my hands. I decided to leave the house immediately, but Emily said, maybe it's just a story. I wish she had agreed. October 22nd, 2023, that night, the night that changed everything. 3:17 a.m. This time the sound was extremely loud. The whole house was echoing. The walls were shaking, and then crack. A crack appeared in our bedroom wall, and from that crack a hand came out. Dry, rotten, but moving. Emily screamed. I froze, and then from inside the wall another face started peeking out. Completely black eyes, a torn mouth. Ryan, help us. That voice, the same voice from the diary, I grabbed Emily's hand and ran downstairs toward the door. But the door was locked on its own. Throughout the house, hundreds of voices were echoing, "Let us out. Join us. You live in our skin now." The walls started breaking. Hands were coming out from everywhere. I broke a window, pushed Emily outside, but as I was about to jump, something grabbed my leg. I looked down, a hand coming out of the wall. Its grip was ice cold. I used all my strength and freed myself. We kept running. When I looked back, the entire house looked like it was breathing. The walls were pulsating, and from the windows, faces were staring at us. We collapsed on the road. After some time, the police arrived. October 24th, 2023. The cops checked the entire house. They broke the walls, and what they saw inside, no one could have imagined. At least 11 skeletons, all inside the walls. Some had broken nails as if they had tried to claw their way out. But the most terrifying part, 2 of those skeletons were fresh, as if they were from just a few days ago. And one of them was wearing Emily's clothes. I froze. "Sir, where is your wife?" An officer asked. I looked behind me. Emily was standing with me, but slowly her hands started turning cold. I looked at her. Her face was changing, eyes turning black, mouth tearing open, and she was smiling. "Ryan, I never left the wall." I fell backward, and then everything went dark. When I woke up, I was in a hospital. The cops said, "Your wife was found dead inside the wall." But I know, the one who ran out with me was not Emily. And even today, every night at 3:17 a.m., from the wall of my room, I still hear that same voice, "Ryan, let me in." On the basement stairs, that burned child stood there, slowly tilting his head as he stared at me. There was nothing in his black eyes, just empty darkness. And then he smiled and said, "You're late. I've been waiting." My name is Dorian Hale. This story is from October 16th, 2022. Location, 4821 Maplewood Drive, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, USA. My wife, Marla Hale, and I moved into our new house that day. From the outside, the house looked perfect. Clean white walls, a perfectly trimmed lawn, just like a typical American suburban dream. But the moment we stepped inside, there was a strange smell, old dampness, and something else, like something had been rotting for a long time. Marla casually said, "Maybe the previous owners were careless." But right then, I felt like something wasn't right. October 18th, 2022, 11:40 p.m. It was our first night. Everything felt normal. But around 2 a.m., I suddenly woke up. It felt like someone was walking in the kitchen. Tap, 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 barefoot footsteps. I thought it was Marla. But when I looked beside me, she was fast asleep. My body froze. I slowly got up and walked toward the hallway. The lights were off, but a faint glow from the fridge was lighting up part of the kitchen. And in that dim light, I saw something. A small shadow, like a child standing there. I gathered the courage and said, "Hello?" The moment I turned on the light, the shadow was gone. I tried to calm myself. New place, imagination. But the real horror was just beginning. October 20th, 2022, 6:50 p.m. Marla found an old box in the basement. Inside it were toys, a broken car, a doll, and a photograph. The photo showed a family. On the back it said March 3rd, 2010. But the creepiest thing, the child's eyes, completely black, like they had been filled with ink. Marla laughed and said, "Creepy, but cool for Halloween." I didn't find it funny at all. October 22nd, 2022, 3:07 a.m. This time, I didn't wake up from a sound. I woke up from laughter. Soft, disturbing. He. And this time, it was clearly coming from the basement. I tried to stop myself, but curiosity won. I opened the basement door, pitch darkness below. The moment I took my first step, a voice whispered, "Come play." A chill ran through my entire body. I went downstairs, turned on my phone flashlight, and what I saw, I will never forget. That doll, the one from the box, was now sitting on the floor, and its neck was slowly turning toward me. I ran upstairs immediately, slammed the door shut. After that night, I avoided the basement. October 25th, 22 to 9:30 a.m. I spoke to my neighbor, Mr. Calder. The moment he heard the address, his face turned serious. He told me, back in 2010, a family lived there, Victor Langley, Nora Langley, and their son, Silas Langley. One night, a fire broke out in the basement. The parents somehow survived, but Silas was trapped inside. And the strangest part, his body was never found. Only small burned handprints were found on the walls. The house had been empty ever since. October 27th, 2022, 1:55 a.m. This time, Marla woke up too. We both heard it, footsteps and laughter. Then, the basement door slowly opened on its own. Crack! Marla said, "Let's leave." Then a voice said, "You can't." We looked down. On the basement stairs, it was standing there. A burned child, skin torn and blackened, eyes completely black. He tilted his head and said, "Mom, why did you leave me?" Marla screamed. I grabbed her and ran, but the front door wouldn't open. It felt like something was holding it from the outside. Then I realized his body was never found. He's still in the basement. Marla understood. We went back down. That thing was still there. This time, it was smiling. We started digging the basement floor. After some time, we found bones. Small, burned bones. The moment we pulled them out, a loud voice echoed through the house. "Finally!" And that entity slowly turned into smoke and disappeared. The front door opened. We ran outside. October 28th, 2022, 4:20 a.m. The cops arrived. They searched the entire house. They found the bones in the basement. The case was reopened. The official report said child remains recovered after 12 years. But then came the real twist. After testing, the result came back. These bones do not belong to Silas Langley. My hands went cold. Then where is Silas? And what did we see? Today, in 2026, I'm recording this story because last night in my new house, I heard that same laughter again. He. And this time, outside my bedroom, there were small burned handprints, and written on the door, "You didn't take me with you." After what happened last night, I decided I'm not running anymore. Now I have to find out the truth. 15 February 2026, 2:18 a.m. That same laughter again. He. This time, I wasn't scared. I slowly got up and walked toward the door. Outside the door, there were those same small burned handprints again. But this time, there was something else with them. A line. Basement. My heartbeat started racing. I slowly opened the door. The whole house was drowned in darkness. But this time, the basement door was already open, like something was calling me. I went downstairs. With every step, the cold kept increasing. As soon as I reached the bottom, I saw something. On the wall, new handprints. But these weren't small, they were big, like an adult's. Something clicked in my head. These aren't a child's handprints. Then a voice came from behind. Finally, you're starting to see. I turned around. It wasn't a child. Its shape was changing. Slowly, its burned small body started stretching, bones cracking, skin tearing, and within seconds, it turned into an adult man. The eyes still completely black, face burned. He smiled. I was never Silas. The ground slipped under my feet. Then, who are you? He slowly walked closer to me and whispered, the one who put him there. My breath stopped, like a flashback. Everything started connecting. Why the fire started in the basement, why the body was never found. I said, trembling, you killed Silas? He laughed, a slow, disturbing laugh. Not just him, his parents knew. Victor, Nora, they saw everything. But what did they tell the police? The answer came into my mind on its own. Accidental fire. He laughed loudly. Exactly. They saved me and left their own son to die in the basement. My spine went cold. Why? He stared into my eyes and said, because I promised them money, freedom, and silence. I understood. This was murder, not an accident. Silas? I asked in fear. Where is he? He slowly smiled and pointed toward the corner of the basement. Right there. I turned my flashlight, and what I saw, the ones we had found, they weren't small. They were adult bones. My breath stopped. Then Silas. He came very close to me and whispered, he never left. Suddenly, the temperature in the basement dropped, and behind me, I felt another presence. I slowly turned around, and this time, it was the real Silas. Small, completely burned, pain in his eyes. He wasn't looking at me, he was staring at that man, the man who killed him. For the first time, fear appeared on that man's face. No, he shouldn't be here. Silas slowly started walking forward. With every step, new handprints appeared on the walls, and then he grabbed the man's hand and said just one line, you stayed. The very next second, the entire basement caught fire. But this time, it wasn't real fire. It was something else. That man was screaming, his body burning, and Silas just staring at him. After a few seconds, everything went silent. Both of them, gone. The basement empty again. I collapsed right there. 16th February 26, 5:10 a.m. The cops arrived. I told them everything. They checked the basement. They found 2 sets of remains, one small, one large. The case was officially reopened. Old records were pulled out, and the truth came out. Victor and Nora had made a deal for insurance money with a criminal. The plan was a fake fire, but that plan turned into murder. Silas died, and the killer hid in the basement, and later got trapped in the same fire and died, and his soul got stuck there. He was the one pretending to be a child so someone would take him out. I stayed silent. Everything was over, or at least I thought so. 20 February 2026, 12:03 a.m. I was finally sleeping peacefully. Then a faint sound came, tap, 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 tap. I opened my eyes. Outside the door this time there were no burned marks, just a small drawing, a stick figure, a child, and below it written, thank you. I smiled, and for the first time I felt like he was gone. Forever. I'm telling the truth, if I had stayed there for just 2 more minutes that night, I probably wouldn't be alive today. The bedroom door of that house was locked from the inside, and still, something was walking inside. There was a faint tap, tap, tap sound on the floor, like someone barefoot slowly walking toward my bed. And the scariest part, I had seen with my own eyes that there was no one else in that room except me. My name is Callum Reyes, and all of this started on June 14th, 2022, when my wife Olivia and I moved into a new house on the outskirts of Melbourne, Australia. The address was 27 Blackridge Lane, Cranbourne East, Victoria. From the outside, the house looked completely normal, a little old, but spacious and affordable. The real estate agent told us the previous owner had sold it urgently, which is why the price was so low. At the time, we thought we got lucky, but we had no idea. We hadn't bought a house, we had bought a living nightmare. Something felt off from the very first day of shifting. While the movers were bringing in the saman, one of the guys unloading boxes suddenly stopped and stared at the main door. I asked, "Everything all right, mate?" He said quietly, "I've worked at this house before, but back then no one lived here, and people used to say this place isn't safe." I laughed it off. Urban myths. But he just gave me a strange look and went back to work. That night felt normal, or maybe we just thought it was. June 15th, 2022, 2:17 a.m. I suddenly woke up. I don't know why, but there was this heavy, suffocating feeling in the room, like the air itself had weight. Olivia was sleeping next to me, but her face looked unusually pale. That's when I heard it. Tap, 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 like someone walking across the wooden floor. I thought maybe Olivia had gotten up to use the bathroom, but she was right there beside me. The sound slowly started coming closer to the bed. My heart felt like it was about to explode out of my chest. I gathered the courage and turned on my phone flashlight, slowly scanning the room. No one was there. The sound stopped. I was just about to feel relieved when suddenly something banged hard from under the bed. Thud! 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 I jerked back instantly. Olivia woke up too and screamed, "Ethan, what was that?" I couldn't say anything. We just sat there on the bed in silence until morning. The next day, we checked the entire house. Everything was normal, except one thing. On the wooden floor, right beside the bed, there were small wet footprints, like someone with soaked feet had walked up to that spot and then vanished. From that day, Olivia's behavior started changing. She became quieter and often just stared blankly at one corner. One time I asked, "What are you looking at?" She said softly, "That girl, can't you see her?" The ground beneath me felt like it disappeared. "What girl?" Olivia pointed directly toward the bedroom door. "She's standing there, soaked, and she's smiling at me." I looked there. There was nothing. But in that moment, the room temperature suddenly dropped, like someone had blasted the AC at full power. June 18, 2022. I was at work when I got a call from Olivia. Her voice was shaking. "Callum, please come home, please." I rushed back immediately. When I got there, the front door was open. Inside, everything was scattered, like someone had violently torn the place apart. And Olivia, she was sitting in a corner, crying. There were deep scratches on her arms, like someone had clawed her. I asked what happened. What she said shook me to my core. "That girl came to me. She said this house is hers, and if we stay here, she'll kill us." I called the police. Cops came, searched the whole house, but of course, they found no one. They said it was probably an attempted break-in. But I knew this was something else. That night, I didn't dare sleep. I stayed in the living room with all the lights on. 3:05 a.m., I heard footsteps from the stairs. Tap, tap, tap. The sound was clearer now, like someone was slowly walking down. I looked up, and this time, I froze. Halfway down the stairs, a girl was standing. Her long, wet hair covered her face. Her clothes were completely drenched, and her feet were twisted backward. She slowly lifted her head, and I saw her face. Her eyes were completely black, no whites at all, and her lips were stretched into an unnaturally wide smile. My brain stopped working. She slowly started walking toward me. With every step, water dripped onto the floor. Tap, tap. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move, like something was holding them in place. She came right up to me, leaned close to my ear, and whispered softly, "Leave or stay forever." And after that, everything went black. When I woke up, I was in a hospital. Olivia was sitting beside me, but her expression was strange, completely emotionless. The doctor said I had collapsed from shock. I didn't want to go back to that house, but Olivia kept insisting. "She won't hurt us. She just wants to talk." Hearing that scared me even more. June 21st, 2022, I had decided we needed to leave that house. I was packing. That's when I noticed the attic door. We had never opened it before. I don't know why, but I felt like the answers were up there. I went up and opened it. A foul smell hit me, like dirty water and something rotten. I turned on my flashlight, and what I saw made my breath stop. There was an old bathtub, and inside it a skeleton. Beside it, a diary. The diary said there was a girl named Ela Bennett. She used to live in this house, and her parents used to torture her. They would drown her in water as punishment until she passed out. One day, she died, and her body was hidden right there. My mind was spinning. That's when I heard a voice behind me. "You shouldn't have come up here." I slowly turned around. Olivia was standing there, but she wasn't Olivia anymore. Her eyes had turned black, and her hair was wet. She smiled slowly. "Now you'll stay here too." That's when I realized whatever that thing was, it was inside Olivia now. I didn't think. I just ran. Stumbling down the stairs, I rushed out the door. Behind me, I could hear Olivia calling, "Callum, don't leave me." But there was no love in that voice anymore, only something dark and furious. I didn't look back. I ran straight to the road and stopped a passing car. I went directly to the police station. The cops came back with me. When we reached the house, the door was open. Inside, everything was silent. Olivia was gone. We checked the attic. The bathtub was gone too. No skeleton, like nothing had ever been there. The police did a full investigation, but they found no evidence. The official report said missing person case. It's 2026 now. I'm still in Australia, but I never go near that house. Sometimes late at night, I get calls from an unknown number, and when I answer, all I hear is tap, tap, and then a faint whisper, "Come back, Callum." I still can't forget that sound from that night, a sound that didn't belong to any human, and yet somehow it carried my girlfriend's scream inside it. "Darian, help me." Her voice was coming from the basement, but I had seen her with my own eyes, falling from the top of the stairs, her neck twisted, her body completely still, and still she was calling me from down there. I swear if I had delayed even a second that night, maybe I wouldn't be alive today to tell this story. My name is Darian Blake, and this story is from September 14th, 2002, in a small town called St. Ann Parish, Jamaica. My girlfriend Nyla Morgan and I had been in a relationship for 3 years, and finally we decided to buy a new house together for a fresh start. Nyla had always loved seaside houses. She found this old colonial-style place online. The address was 18 Seaview Crescent, St. Ann Parish, Jamaica. In the photos, the house looked old, but it had a strange kind of charm. A wooden structure, white paint peeling off, and a dense jungle-like area behind it. To be honest, something about that house felt off to me, but Nyla was so excited that I said yes for her happiness. We officially moved in on September 20th, 2002. The day of the move was normal, a little tiring, a little exciting, that new house feeling, mixed with the faint smell of old wood in every room. Around 7 p.m., after we brought in the last box, Nyla smiled and said, "Darian, this place feels alive. I love it." At that moment, I found it cute, but now when I think about it, maybe it really was alive. That night started out completely normal. We had a simple dinner, then sat in the living room listening to some music. At exactly 11:47 p.m., something strange happened for the first time. We heard a dragging sound from the upstairs bedroom, like something heavy, slowly being pulled across the floor. I stood up immediately. "Nyla, did you leave something upstairs?" She shook her head. "No, everything is here." Still, I thought maybe something had fallen because of the wind. I went upstairs, but everything was exactly in place. Nothing had moved. But as I turned to come back down, I clearly heard footsteps behind me. Thack, 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 I froze. Slowly, I turned around. No one was there. Just a cold gust of air brushed past me. I came back downstairs and told Nyla. She just laughed it off. "Old house noises, Darian. Relax." I stayed quiet, but inside something felt wrong. Around 2:13 a.m., I suddenly woke up. It felt like someone had whispered right next to my ear, "Don't let her stay." I jolted upright. The room was dark, only faint moonlight coming through the window. Nyla was sleeping beside me, but her breathing was heavy, like she was having a dream. Then, with her eyes still closed, she softly said, "He's here." My heart started racing. "Who's here, Nyla?" She didn't open her eyes, just whispered one word, "Below." After that night, everything slowly began to change. The next morning, September 21st, 2002, 9:30 a.m., Nyla wanted to explore the basement. I didn't like the idea at all. I don't know why, but she insisted. So we went down. The basement door was old and heavy. When I opened it, a sharp, rotten smell hit us, like damp soil, and something else, something hard to describe. It was completely dark down there, only a broken bulb hanging from the ceiling. As we stepped down, Nyla suddenly stopped. "I don't feel right here." There was fear in her voice. I immediately said, "Let's go back." But as we turned, the basement door slammed shut on its own. "Bang!" Nyla screamed. I rushed to open it, but it was stuck. In the darkness, I felt like something was moving around us. "Thack, thack, thack." Nyla grabbed my hand tightly. "Darian, someone's here." And I felt it too. We were not alone. Then a voice came, right next to us. A deep, rough male voice. "She stays." And suddenly Nyla screamed, like something had grabbed her leg. I pulled her with all my strength, somehow forced the door open, and we ran upstairs. After that day, Nyla completely changed. She became quiet, distant, often talking to herself. Sometimes her voice would change, like someone else was speaking through her. September 23rd, 2002, 1:06 a.m. I woke up and saw Nyla wasn't in bed. I started looking for her. Living room, kitchen, everywhere. Then I heard a soft humming sound from upstairs. I went up, and what I saw changed my life forever. Nyla was standing in front of the mirror, but her reflection wasn't there. Instead, there was a man standing in the mirror. Tall, dark, his face completely burned, and he was staring directly at me. I froze in shock. Nyla slowly turned toward me. Her eyes were completely white. "Darian, he wants me." I stepped forward to grab her, but she pushed me so hard, I fell back. Then she ran toward the stairs. I ran after her. "Nyla, stop!" But as she reached the last step, something invisible pulled her down. She fell straight down the stairs. The sound of her neck breaking still echoes in my ears. I ran down. Her body was completely still, her eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. I was crying, screaming, but she was gone. Then, what I told you in the beginning happened. Her voice came from the basement. "Darian, help me." I was shattered. My mind was telling me she was dead, but my heart was saying maybe she was still alive. I slowly walked toward the basement. Every step felt heavy, like something was watching me. As I opened the door, darkness and a cold gust of air. Her voice came again from below. "Come down." But this time, it wasn't Nyla's voice. There was something else in it, something terrifying. Then suddenly, something shoved me from behind. I almost fell down the stairs, and a voice whispered in my ear, "Run." I didn't think, I just ran. I ran out of the house without looking back. I kept running down the road until morning, when I reached a nearby police station. September 25th, 2002, 6:40 a.m. The cops came with me to the house. They searched everything. Nyla's body was still there, at the bottom of the stairs. But the basement was completely empty. No signs, no sounds, like nothing had ever been there. The police ruled it an accident. They said she must have slipped. But I know it wasn't an accident. I never went near that house again. I left Jamaica, moved to another city. Now it's 2026, 24 years have passed. Nothing paranormal has ever happened to me again. But every night when I close my eyes, I still hear that voice. "Darian, help me." And I know I couldn't save her. She slowly said my name, but I was completely alone in the house at that moment. It was exactly 2:17 a.m., October 15th, 2023. I was standing in the middle of the living room, and my phone had slipped from my hand onto the floor. Because what was standing in front of me was not my wife. It looked like her, but her neck was twisted a full 180 degrees, and her eyes were locked directly onto mine. "Dylan, why did you open it?" Her voice Sounded like two different people speaking at the same time. My throat went dry. I started stepping back slowly, but in a second, she closed the distance and stopped right in front of me. There was a strange smell coming from her, like wet soil and rotting flesh. She slowly placed her finger on my chest, and then lights off. The entire house drowned in darkness, and in that darkness, there was only one sound I could hear. Thack, thack, thack. Like something was banging on a door from inside the basement. My name is Dylan Mercer, and what I'm about to tell you is not a made-up story. This really happened to me. And if you ever go to 1847 Willow Creek Drive, Ashford, Oregon, please never open the basement door. October 12th, 2023, 10:45 a.m. My wife Sienna Mercer and I finally moved into our new house. From the outside, it looked perfect. White walls, a big lawn, and an old oak tree on the side. Everything felt like a dream. And the biggest thing, we got this house at a price that honestly didn't make sense. The agent just said the owner wanted to sell quickly, but every time I asked for the owner's name, he avoided it. At that time, it didn't feel strange, but now it makes sense. As soon as we stepped inside, a cold gust of air hit my face, and a smell like damp old walls and something else, something I couldn't explain. Sienna reacted immediately. Dylan, do you smell that? I tried to sound casual. Yeah, house has been closed for a while. It's normal. We opened the windows, started cleaning. Everything felt normal, except one place. The basement door, an old wooden door with peeling paint, and the strangest part, deep scratch marks from the inside, like someone had tried to claw their way out. I touched it. The door was cold, unnaturally cold, like something frozen was behind it. Sienna grabbed my hand immediately. Not now. There was fear in her voice. I laughed it off. Relax, this isn't a horror movie. But honestly, I felt it too. By evening, everything was set. October 12, 11:58 p.m., we were lying in bed, and suddenly, my eyes opened. I don't know why. Everything was silent, but then a sound came from downstairs. Thack, thack, thack. I sat up instantly, focused. Then it came again, louder this time. Thack, thack. Like something hitting wood, hard. I woke Sienna. Do you hear that? She murmured. What? Then she heard it too, and her face changed instantly. Dylan, someone is downstairs. My heart started racing. I got out of bed, walked into the hallway. With every step, the sound became clearer. It was coming straight from the basement door. I walked down the stairs and stood in front of it. The sound was louder now, like something inside was trying to break it open. Then suddenly, silence. The entire house went quiet. I grabbed the handle, ice cold, and just as I was about to open it, Sienna screamed from behind me, Dylan! I turned immediately, and what I saw changed everything. Sienna was standing at the top of the stairs, but she wasn't normal. Her face had turned into a dark shadow, her eyes completely white, and she was staring right at me. Don't open it. That voice wasn't hers. I froze, and in the very next second, everything went normal. She looked confused. Dylan, what are you doing down there? I couldn't say anything. I just took her back to the room. We didn't sleep that night. The next morning, October 13, 2023, I decided I needed answers. I went to an old resident in town. His name was Walter Briggs. The moment I told him the address, he looked straight into my eyes. You're living there? I nodded. He stayed silent for a few seconds, then said slowly, the Parker family used to live there. Their daughter, Nora Parker, 17 years old. I asked. What happened? He said. People say something got inside her. Her parents locked her in the basement. My heart started pounding. Locked? Yes, for months. One night, the whole neighborhood heard screams. Police came. Parents dead. Bodies torn badly. Basement walls full of scratch marks. I whispered. Nora? He leaned closer. Missing. The door was locked from the inside, but she wasn't there. My hands went cold. I rushed back home and stood in front of the basement door. Now it wasn't fear, it was something else. I opened it and slowly walked down. With each step, the air got colder. Pitch dark, I turned on my phone flashlight, and when I reached the bottom, the light flickered. And in that flicker, I saw the walls covered in scratches, like someone had tried to rip through them, and in some places, dried blood. My breath stopped, and then I heard a voice behind me, "Dylan." I turned instantly. The light shook, and in that flicker, I saw her. A girl, tall, thin, hair reaching the ground, her face hidden in darkness, only her eyes visible, and she smiled slowly. "Finally, you opened it." My mind went blank. I ran straight up the stairs, shut the door, locked it, but after that, every night, 2:17 a.m., the same knocking, tack, 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 and one day, October 15, 2023, I made a mistake. I opened the door, and what I saw, you already know. The same scene, the same twisted neck, the same voice. That night, somehow, I survived. I grabbed Sienna, and we ran out of the house, got into the car, drove straight onto the road. When I looked back, she was standing at the upstairs window, watching us, slowly waving her hand like she was saying, "Come back." The next morning, the police came. I told them everything. They checked the whole house, the basement too, but they found nothing. No girl, no marks, everything clean, like nothing had ever happened. The officer just said, "Probably stress, imagination." But I know she was real because when we were leaving the house, there were fresh scratch marks on Sienna's hand, and to this day, she has never been able to explain where they came from. And the most terrifying part, last night, exactly at 2:17 a.m., I got a message on my phone from an unknown number. It said only one thing: "Why did you leave me alone? Dylan,